Hello, everyone, and welcome. We'll give everyone just a second to log into the webinar here before we get going. Welcome to our virtual seminar, Build Unforgettable Sales Kickoffs with the Golden Thread Method. This seminar is brought to you by Rain Group, a global sales training and performance improvement firm that helps companies unleash the sales potentials of their teams. I'm Katie, your host. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping notes. You can type in any questions you have into the Q&A pod, and we'll do our best to answer a handful of these at the end of the seminar. Two, we have a discussion planned early in the session, so keep your eye out for any poll pop-ups and chat prompts. And third, we are recording this event. You will receive an email by the end of this week with links to watch the recording. Now, to introduce our speaker, Andy Springer. Andy Springer is the Chief Client Officer at Ring Group and a recognized authority on high-performance sales. Since 2020, Andy has led Ring Group's global delivery team, driving measurable results from clients worldwide, and over that past 10 years, has spearheaded some of the Ring Group's most impactful programs, delivering outcomes for hundreds of thousands of participants across some of the world's most iconic brands. Andy is the perfect fit for today's topic. He now leads our global product strategy, and he even pioneers our future of AI-enabled learning. Fun fact, Andy is based in Sydney. He's co-founded two successful consultancies. He's a passionate follower of the high-performance sailing, think SailGP and the America's Cup. And he's the proud dad of three teenagers and one lively 6-year-old. Take it away, Andy.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and I can see some very familiar faces on there. Welcome to those of you who I know. For those of you who we're meeting for the first time, my name's Andy, and as Katie said, Chief Client Officer with Rain Group. I've got some special guests to introduce you to a little bit later, but let's get our time started together. So I've been to a lot of SKOs over the years. Some have been ones that have absolutely lit me up, and others, well, let's just say they've been more of a monotonous death by PowerPoint than a catalyst for performance. Let me share two quick stories to bring that to life. A couple of years ago, I was invited to an SKO for a very large IT&T client, one of those huge global brands. Production value was impressive, massive stage, slick slides, big screens, celebrity headliners, perfectly timed transition. But here's the thing, by mid-morning day one, people were checking their emails, scrolling their phones, mentally clocking out, and the rumbles of boredom and disengagement got louder and louder by the first break. And the reason why was because the session was very one-way. Slide after slide, product update, internal stats, more product updates. There was no spark. There was no connection to what really mattered for the people attending it. The seller audience, by the end of day two, was experiencing really low, flat energy. You could almost hear the collective sigh of relief when it wrapped. It was technically polished, but emotionally empty. Disengagement was successfully realized, and a very unfortunate outcome at that, and it was a very big, expensive fail. And then I was at a professional services SKO not long after that, actually, and it inspired action. There wasn't a huge budget, wasn't all the flash and pizzazz of the other, but it was a time that couldn't have been in stark contrast to that other SKO. The session was built around real client stories. Leaders weren't just presenting; they were inviting conversation. Sellers were sharing wins, sharing lessons, talking about failures. Teams were workshopping success, and they had technology integrated in an event app that was leveraged to create ongoing reinforcement of the message. The SKO theme continued throughout. Engagement was high. They built in group-based challenges through their app. And by the end of the single day, the energy was electric. You could feel the momentum building. And they were brilliantly engaged throughout that. This was an audience group who were very difficult to inspire, by the way, very technical selling audience. But they experienced an SKO that was truly transformative. And the investment created a force multiplier in terms of the impact that it had. And would you believe that the year following that SKO, they had their biggest sales year ever. Now, was the SKO the only reason for that? No, but it was a brilliant launch pad to get their selling year started. We've seen so many companies invest heavily in SKOs that look great on paper, yet the impact fades within weeks. And our RAIN research, our newest research in this space, shows only a third focus on motivation and fewer than half plan for reinforcement. So it's no wonder that the behaviors post SKO do not stick. And I often say SKO isn't just an event, it's a decision point for whether your sales culture moves forward or resets to default. Most SKOs are missed opportunities because they stop short of connecting excitement and translating that to execution. And when we don't align the content with real business strategy, sellers return to their old habits within days. I remember another client who ran an incredible SKO, yet 2 weeks later, nothing had changed. And so the issue wasn't enthusiasm, it was the lack of post-event rhythm. So let's hear from you, as I love getting started, but I also like hearing from you at the beginning. So I'm really keen to understand on this poll. So we're going to launch this poll. Come on your screen. It is on there right now. Thank you very much, Katie. How closely was your last SKO aligned with your company strategy? Now, whether it's one you've run, one you've attended, what do you think? What did you see in terms of alignment? Was it completely aligned, very aligned, somewhat, slightly, or not aligned at all? Let's give you another 10 seconds to get your inputs in. Completely, very aligned, somewhat, slightly, or not aligned at all. And let's hear how closely aligned our audience's SKOs they've attended were with company strategy. All right, let's stop that poll and have a look at the results. What are the results saying? Right. Very few were completely aligned. Some were very aligned. Most were somewhat aligned. 40% somewhat aligned. A few slightly, and unfortunately, there's a few that were not aligned at all. 13%. Wow. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So thinking of your SKO as part of your continuous learning culture, not a standalone spike of energy. The most successful organizations we work with connect SKO themes to ongoing coaching and measurement. And if you're not already investing in seller development, your SKO can't be the magic bullet. It isn't the shot in the arm, one size fits all. We've given them all the information. We've set them on their path. Off they go. Everything will be fine. It has to be one of the pieces in your enablement puzzle. So high impact SKOs don't just inspire, they engineer outcomes through alignment, interactivity, and reinforcement. We've seen companies double engagement when they build sessions that sellers do things in, not just listen, right? You do not want your sellers sitting there passively being drowned. You want to get them involved. You want to get them doing as quickly as possible. That is one secret nugget, bang, straight there, that will help you design a really impactful SKO for those of you. And I know we're moving into SKO season. I know there's lots of SKO planning going on. That's why we've timed this webinar for that. So what we're going to help you do is see where the RAIN principles can be infused and at play, which we find when we connect, when we engage, when we activate, we drive for measurable behavioral change. Our SKOs can be, as I said, that force multiplier in terms of the value that it can bring and be the launch pad for a successful selling year to follow. To understand what makes SKOs more impactful than others, we analyze which SKO elements have the strongest influence on seller behavior impact. So strategic alignment, making sure every session clearly links to the company strategy so sellers see why now. Motivation, team building, using high energy inclusive activities that build camaraderie beyond just pure skills work. Interactivity, keeping formats hands-on, polling, breakouts, live debriefs, as we're going to see a bit later from our super expert special guest, leveraging technologies and using technology really impactfully to drive engagement and embedment of learning and your SKO themes in the thinking of your participants. Having motivational guest speakers curate credible voices that reinforce key messages rather than just bring in generic motivation. I know some of us have seen that, some of us experienced that, and we go, wow, that's a really powerful message, but how is it actually linked to what we're actually here today and all the other messages that we're getting? Am I getting information overload, or am I getting information curated to a core theme that's getting pulled through in every single part of content and interaction that I'm being involved in through that SKO? Then we've got role playing, protecting agenda time for realistic practice and feedback, not just product demos. And we'll see a little bit later how some have brought that to life really successfully in their SKOs. To ensure your SKO has the greatest impact on behavior, those 5 elements are then worked into the overall structure and design. Every unforgettable SKO follows this life cycle from strategy to measurement. And at Rain, we've helped global sales orgs build these stages into repeatable systems, not just one-off events. When each stage has the ownership and it has the clarity, you move from an event to a program of influence. So your SKO should make strategy real for sellers, not abstract. And your golden thread is what is going to keep every activity and session anchored into a single compelling theme. I often describe it as your SKO's North Star. If it doesn't tie to your strategy, it doesn't make the cut. So aligning your SKO to your strategy needs to be simple, actionable, and something every seller can repeat in one sentence. I guarantee I know one person that's going to remind me of the power of simplicity, because they know I'm a big fan of it. And I'm about to get a ping in the chat, but that's good. When we've helped clients develop these things, so simple, actionable, and something that every seller can repeat, we've helped clients test this. And the way we do that is, can every rep link their daily actions to this idea? So when you're thinking about your SKO theme, or your golden thread, as we're going to call it, the best ones are tangible. They make strategy feel real. So that golden thread, this is something that's in every session with every speaker, in every exercise, and it all ties together in this concept of the golden thread. If your keynotes aren't linked to activation and linked to that golden thread, they just become noise, not momentum. So having a golden thread in terms of outcome, each seller walks out with great clarity, and their action plans turn our SKO into sustained movement, which is what I know a lot of you are seeking in terms of that launch. So the consistent theme that anchors every session and every message. Even if you put a lot of thought into that golden thread, it should be simple and not require a high degree of excess explanation. So think about how it makes sellers feel. What will motivate them to go out and sell with a new perspective after your SKO? Establish that golden thread early in the planning process so it can be relevant throughout the rest of the SKO. And when you're identifying it, consider this. Sales leadership, feedback and goals needs to be tied in. Current seller mindset, growth targets, and potential areas of focus. And external focus. What's happening in your industry? What's happening in the market? What are you hearing from your customers, your clients? And what else is happening beyond that needs to be tied in and linked through your golden thread? We've all sat through those 60-minute keynotes and SKOs that sound inspiring but don't translate into action. Sellers connect better with voices that speak to their world. They will connect and resonate with their peers, their customers, practitioners. So the quick bite here is relevance trumps rank. Relevance trumps rank. So the most impactful voices are the ones that make the message real. So let's move on to our second part. So we've talked about golden thread. Let's talk about facilitation and training. So your golden thread needs meaningful learning to back it up. So your learning goals represent the tactical steps necessary for sellers to embrace your golden thread and change their behavior around it. So when searching for a training provider, it's obviously important to understand their methodology to make sure it aligns to your organizational needs. Now, I'm not going to get too salesy here, but in terms of Rain Group, in terms of our experience, we offer research content, deep subject matter expertise across a full range of capabilities where sellers need to excel in order to become top performers. So top performing in transforming your selling organization to becoming a top performing selling organization is the common theme or golden thread at your SKO. Then engaging someone like Rain Group with the research, the content that align to that would make it very consistent and very powerful as an example. Let's head back to the polls. Let's launch this one, Katie. So I want to know now, what activities were a part of the most recent SKOs that you've attended? So just tick all of those that are ones that you have experienced. So executive keynotes, customer success stories. Was there sales training workshops built into the SKO? Were there interactive exercises, role plays, breakouts? That can include technology. If the technology was infused, we can put that in the interactive exercises. Action planning, structured group activities. Did you have an inspirational, motivational guest speaker? Were there awards and recognition? Here are all the ingredients we often find through our study and experience in SKOs. Which of those activities were in the ones that you've experienced? All right, let's pause that now. Let's have a look. Survey says, okay, so really good blend of keynotes, success stories, training, role plays and activities, and then less action planning and goal setting. That's interesting. So only 1/5 experienced action planning and goal setting, and then exactly half structured group activities, and half experienced motivational guest speakers. Okay, so a good mix there. Action planning, goal setting sessions seems to be the lesser of those activities at the SKOs you've experienced. Thank you very much for sharing that with us and those attending. So while keynotes often dominate SKO agendas, they're less effective at achieving objectives. So instead of high impact SKOs focusing on team building, sales training workshops, and seller recognition are going to get much greater impact. So regardless of the exact composition of your SKO, all of your activities should tie back to your golden thread. Motivation isn't about hype. It's about human connection and shared purpose. Structured and unstructured team time is where culture cements. And I've seen moments at SKOs where team challenges or peer-led sessions driving an energy lift that was palpable and really sustaining. So you've got that in terms of our research. You can see our latest SKO, the SKO Shake-Up research that we've published in our most recent report in terms of what we found around what to do, what not to do, and what makes for a successful or unforgettable SKO in our research. The next is practice isn't a nice to have in your SKO. It's the bridge between learning and doing. I always say, don't let sellers practice on buyers. Create safe environments like simulations in order to build real confidence. And when we embed practice into the SKO, we see skill retention skyrocket, let alone the engagement aspect of it and the interaction aspect of it drives buy-in for the sellers. And they love doing and showing and engaging with others. And that makes for a really powerful SKO. So let's now look at, we've looked at facilitation. We're now going to look at engagement and the architecture of your SKO. So high impact SKOs are 2.7 times more likely to be highly interactive. So emphasize skill application over knowledge transfer, and you're going to keep your sellers at the center of the action. Talk about how to integrate these activities in your SKO and use examples where possible. In some cases, they may even warrant their own session. So other activities can be applied tactically, such as incorporating success stories into other sessions or using gamification in order to add interaction. Shared problem solving is a bit broader in practice. It might look like a group discussion in which sellers work through how to sell effectively to a challenging buyer persona or other example that they engage in that are as close to real life in their selling world as possible. Team building is another opportunity to build trust that will help sustain your team throughout the year. So with remote team distribution impacting culture and collaboration, leaders often struggle with misalignment between team members. And the experiences that make your culture, your culture truly cohesive come from activities such as these. So with the amount of information that you want to throw out at your SKO to your attendees, these activities are an opportunity for sellers to recharge, to connect, and to have fun between learning sessions. So even when not directly related to sales, team building activities can connect back to your golden thread in a way that's memorable and also boost morale. So in terms of your architecture, have a think about those critical points: motivation, team building, in the way in which you construct it. And now we're going to look at, as you've heard from my intro, one of the things that I'm a very big fan of: reinforcement and integration, or integrating reinforcement within your SKO. The SKO doesn't end when the stage lights go down. That's where the real work starts. So pre-work, coaching, and accountability partners ensure learning sticks. Having those set up, having those integrated within inside your SKO offering can ensure that stickability pre and post the SKO. And Rain's most successful clients design reinforcement before the SKO even begins. It's always long tail. It's always long tail learning and enablement, and the SKO is just a part of that. Sometimes pre-work is before the SKO. So SKO sometimes is not even the starting point, but often it is. But as I said, it's the beginning point, not the end point in terms of that. We've got to keep the momentum alive. We've got to make the learning and the golden thread stay alive in order to be able to sustain post-SKO. So building rhythm is how you keep momentum alive. SKO at the beginning, you want to think about a mid-year booster. You want to think about quarterly refreshers. Repetition isn't redundancy, it's reinforcement. And so when leaders commit to rhythm, culture shifts from event-driven to habit-driven. That's a critical point here: event-driven to habit-driven. Right? And habits is where you will see sales performance improvement pull through. Events don't create sales performance improvement. They don't sustain it. Events leading to habits create that sustainment. So that's a critical part, and it certainly shone through in terms of what our most recent research shows, and also the experience in seeing the most successful SKOs that we've been able to be a part of. More content doesn't necessarily mean better reinforcement. So that how often matters just as much as the what. So blend smaller touches such as on-demand learning and regular coaching check-ins with larger touch points. So everything about the golden thread still applies here, but now you have sellers actively applying learning into their roles. The activities you plan should take all of this into account, and obviously emphasize practical adoption. You want to be able to provide opportunities for your sales teams to share successes, adjust to challenges, and keep the theme visible and top of mind for sellers in order for us to sustain it before and after the SKO. And all of that has to do with finding our rhythm throughout the year. This is a whole design. It's not just a single event. Best SKOs are part of a larger culture of continuous learning and development. You want to build momentum before the SKO and sustain it after, tying other learning activities back to your golden thread. Now, SKO research revealed 3 amplifiers and sustainers. The orgs with the most successful SKOs extend and reinforce kickoff momentum through, and we've covered reinforcement and rhythm. Now let's talk about measurement. So measurement and iteration. We've got to gather data before, during, and after, because transformation isn't a snapshot. When leaders own the metrics, they own the outcomes. When leaders own the metrics, they own the outcomes. So if you're designing an SKO, I want you to be thinking about, if you're in sales enablement, or if you're sales leaders joining this call, are the other leaders in the organization engaged in the curation, design, and development of the SKO and all of those sustaining aspects that we've spoken about around keeping that golden thread alive throughout your selling year? If you don't have leadership buy-in, and if you don't have everyone aligned early, then you will see your golden thread dissolve or come unhitched from your SKO and other initiatives very quickly. It only takes one influential leader to stand up who isn't aligned to completely redirect the narrative to something else, and the whole golden thread falls apart. So a great SKO becomes your annual experiment in how to effectively drive change with inside your selling org. It's a critical one. So how do we do that? So we've got to think about the why behind tracking. We can't just measure sales results. We need to measure behavioral change that leads to the sales results that we're going to measure. So think about like things we can measure, like seller confidence, seller engagement, seller adoption of the things that we're asking them to do, and tracking them along the way to show whether the SKO truly worked. It's about understanding not only what improved, but why it did. So we think about our data mix, a mix of metrics that tells the full story, performance data plus feedback and engagement. So numbers show outcomes, feedback reveals the drivers behind them. The best teams balance both for deeper insight. We want to challenge the status quo. Too many teams stop at surveys or skip measurement altogether. The real impact is in change behavior and sustained performance lift. To prove ROI, we need to broaden what success means. And so the question we often have in these pre-work or pre-SKO sessions is, what are all the things we can measure? And we come up with this huge list of measurements. The challenge then is, do we have the data to support it? Do we have the tracking mechanisms to support it? So you've got to look at the measures and the tracking mechanisms, not just the measures. And the measures are actually the easy part. The tracking mechanisms are the harder part. And that's just not for SKOs. That's across lots of engagements that we are involved in, and sales transformations we're involved in. It's never the measure, it's always the tracking. So make sure that you can track what you measure as well in your measurement design. And measurement isn't just about vanity metrics, it's about proving impact. Track seller confidence and adoption, that's where the behavior change shows up first. So we call them the lead indicators. The lag indicators is the sales metrics, the sales performance improvement metrics that have happened after. But we've got to track the behavioral change and the confidence levels and the adoption of learning as it's happening, in order to be able to mitigate, in order to be able to step in and change things up or speed things up as we're going, in order to get to those lag indicators or sales performance improvement outcomes that we're measuring and seeking. So our mantra, of course, is measure what matters most, not what's easiest to count. Measure what matters most, not what's easiest to count. Well, this is where we make it real. And so I'm going to introduce you to our special guest now, who's not just going to talk in terms of our research, not going to talk in terms of our experience. He's going to go deep into sharing lived experience from one of the most successful SKOs, and I would dare challenge and argue on record. So I'm certainly putting you on a very, very big stage here. And so here, the person I'm going to introduce to is a highly valued colleague of mine. I'm thrilled that he is here to share his experience so that you can leverage it and take his learnings and be able to apply them in your SKO design to get the value multiplier that you seek from it. So with that, I'm going to welcome our Chief Sales Officer for Alchemist, Mr. Nicky Sterling. I'm going to take a well-earned break, and over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for that. Yes, I am one of the CSOs here at Ring Group. I am dialing in from Scotland. It's 8:30 here, it's 8 degrees. That's being charitable, that's why I have 4 layers of clothing on. This is a Scottish accent. I'll do my best to neutralise it as best I can for our friends in the US, Europe, and in APAC. So yes, thank you very much, Andy. This is a fairly recent lived experience for myself and the team around. And what I'm going to talk about for maybe the next 5 minutes is a partnership with a client organization that's headquartered in the US, but has a significant sales population around the world in 4 or 5 different regions. And before I describe the scale of their challenge, what the challenge was and how we addressed it, I think it's worth noting why it was important, why this particular SKO for this particular client was significant. Because most SKOs, there are maybe 1 or 2 things on the agenda, right? And maybe it's like a new product launch or a new product release or an update or something like that, something that's fairly discreet, contained, and can be sort of consumed in a fairly straightforward way. This was not that. This was effectively an SKO that was timed in a moment where that organization was looking to almost evolve how it spoke about itself, right? Not just the product or the set of products they had, but almost evolve what it was saying it was here to solve. And in doing so, it was almost completely redefining its TAM, its total addressable market. Like, who is it that could and should be buying from us? So that meant they needed real engagement from their 2,500 sellers around the world, like real engagement. That to get to a point where as soon as SKO concluded, those 2,500 sellers could go to their customers and be erudite, be informed, be fluent, and be influential in the way that they described its new go-to-market messaging and value proposition. So there was a real significance to that. And we partnered with a brilliant team over there who not only were great to work with, smart, polite, they were also very discerning. This wasn't their first rodeo. They knew what they were trying to reach from a standard perspective, and they knew they had to do that in a democratized way. So that wasn't just giving the people that could attend in the west coast of the US for 4 days a brilliant experience. It was making sure that the 700 or 800 around the world who couldn't attend could have a virtual experience that meant something, that resonated, that informed, that educated, that engaged. So that was the additional layer of challenge on that. I could speak for an hour on it. I'll keep it concise. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention, so I will be succinct as much as I possibly can. So 2,500 sellers, blended virtual experience for some, face-to-face experience for others. Twofold challenge. How do you create genuine in-session engagement for 2,500 sellers? And how do you leave a group that size more confident and more fluent in how they express the offering of their organization, especially if the offer is shifting and evolving a little bit? That was a challenge that we were set in partnership with the client. So in line with what Andy's just outlined, we took them through the journey: align, engage, reinforce, and measure. We didn't have a huge part to play in facilitation and training this time around for various different reasons. It was more about, can we become an intellectual thought partner and a tech partner to support this client's team? So can we align, can we engage, can we reinforce, and can we measure? That was the journey we went on. So the first thing that's worth calling out is, from the very beginning, we were looking at, right, how do you drive engagement, and how do you prove that it's happening, and almost how do you incentivize it? So from beginning to end, using some of the best thinkers we've got here and some of the best brains in the client team and their technological capability, we designed almost a full end-to-end seller experience that was gamified, right? So that meant that Andy's right. It's not just when you first walk through the doors of day one of SKO that the experience should start. You can start it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before it by introducing and depositing learning into the laptops and mobile phones of sellers, signaling that something different is about to happen. And that's when it started. Using our technology and our platform, sellers around the world started to get, started to get information on their device that said, you might want to look at this. So that was a series of digital assets, asynchronous assets, e-learning, micro-learnings, and also podcasts as well. So they periodically started to drop into our platform. And what they were communicated was this: it was said to them that every time they engage and complete a piece of learning, they will get a score, and that score will contribute to their collective SKO score at the end of the event. So that's 2,500 people, all incentivized and all sitting in a gamified environment, which tracks the level of engagement that they're showing and what's coming. So that was the gamified digital environment end to end, 3 weeks before the SKO started and all the way through the 4-day event as well. And then it continued for 30 days after it, which we'll talk about in a moment. In-session technology. Yes, people by this stage are used to polls and one or two other simple but can be quite powerful if timed well technology mechanisms that we're used to inside of live sessions. We added to the universe of what was possible with that. We added some about 10 or 12 custom technology interfaces and mechanisms so that when they were sitting in sessions, they were able to engage with the sessions in ways that they hadn't before. Now, that served two brilliant purposes. One was, yes, it engaged the learner and offered them another way of experiencing the learning that was contained within the session. But it also, through that, meant that the management team inside this organization were able to pull data and pull sentiment from the audience. And that became really important in informing the enablement plan that went for the 12 months after the SKO. So that was the other part of how do you create that in-session engagement through some novel, innovative in-session technology. And again, all of those engagements and touch points with the sessions all linked to the leaderboard as well. So every time they showed interest in the sessions, it contributed to a leaderboard. AI conversation tools. I can see 2 or 3 people have asked questions about this already. If you haven't looked into what this technology is able to deliver right now, I would advise everyone on the call to look at it. What AI conversation can do now is astonishing, and the speed of development and evolution around it is equally so. And the reason that this was material to this SKO experience is because it didn't just create an opportunity for sellers en masse to practice how they expressed how the business spoke about itself and this new evolved value proposition in a risk-free AI environment. So to Andy's point, they didn't leave the SKO and practice on live customers and burn TAM and burn opportunity. They practiced with the AI conversational technology that we gave them access to. And that AI conversational technology manifested as a persona that reflected the behaviors and the language and even the objections that were reflective of the client experience that they often have day to day in their sales activity. And then what did that create? Well, between the data that we got from the AI conversation and our platform, we started to get some brilliant management information and data insights on how well this new go-to-market message was landing, how accurate the education was that they were providing over the 4 days, and some other insights too. So I think this was the huge sort of step forward for us. We were used to developing and deploying and delivering amazing SKO experiences, but could we push it so that we could prove lifetime value of it? Because this was the problem statement at the beginning for most clients, which is if the average investment in a seller is sometimes north of $2,500, $3,000 for an SKO, and there's 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 of them, how do you go about making sure there's some return on that? How do you get some peace of mind that there is some? And so that's what the technology wrapper can support with as well, which is a nice segue, Andy or Ryan or one of the other colleagues, to the next slide, where I'll just summarize some of the outcomes from it. Yes, mindful that the first metric, I'll just copy your language, Andy, if that's okay, 100,000 interactions, that is not a vanity metric. We found it astonishing that we were able to get to that level. But the reason it's important is because it does validate something. It does validate that during that SKO experience and just before, as they were building up to it, they were engaging. They were involved and engaging in the content and the learning that they were receiving. The stat on the top right, 97%, that is unprecedented. Transparently speaking, this was an astonishing event where both our side and the client side had seen a level of adoption that had previously been unseen. So 97% uptake on the post-event conversational bot. And to use Andy's phrase, that was because of the relevancy that we generated in the bot's design. Once they played it for the first time, it felt real. It felt like they wanted more of it. Because of that, you can visibly see in all the practice data an increase in seller confidence and fluency. And then this was the sort of big payoff at the executive level, which was as a result of the data created and visualized through the technology, the C-suite, the ultimate buyers of the SKO experience, finally got some peace of mind that they could see an upward trend in seller confidence, seller education, and also manager insight as well. Any data around how the sellers could work with the bot, the managers could see that progress as well. So the C-suite could also see that the managers were identifying development gaps and coaching into it too. So thank you for the opportunity to share that, Andy. We're massively proud of it, and it feels like it's a sign of things to come.
Brilliant, Nikki. I could probably interview you for an hour right now. I'm gonna ask you. Can you hang around for the Q&A? Because I know there's going to be questions, and I reckon a few of them are going to be guided at you. I also have a couple of questions I might throw into you. That was brilliant. I love the surprise, the 100,000 interaction, and if we've got sales enablement people on the call, sales leaders on the call, look at that engagement number. I think I said to you, Nikki, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I said, can you go and check that number? How did you get to 97%? That's like unbelievable. And Nikki went away and come back and said, it's 100% correct. Yeah, across that volume of sellers and realizing that level of engagement. That's astounding. Well done.
Yeah, no, thank you. And to build on that in a couple of ways, I remember that conversation, Andy. It was in our London office. And
That's right.
And we went back and asked the client directly, what did they think made that happen? And there was profanity in their response in a positive way that I can't repeat here. So we will come back to that another day. But 100,000 interactions as well. I think that speaks to your point, though. 100,000 interactions maybe represents the excitement, but it's the 97% uptake that represents the execution.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. We're just going to pause there, because I know that there's going to be questions. As I said, I certainly have some. So I'm just going to close out and summarize so that we can get to Q&A, because it looks like there's a few building. If you haven't, or if you have questions, best to put them in the Q&A bot or the Q&A part of Zoom. There should be a button there. Just drop that in, and Katie will make sure that we get to that in a sec. All right, so looking at how we bring the 5 stages together. So each stage builds on the last, from strategy through to measurement, ensuring a cohesive, high-impact SKO, hopefully replicating some of the great results that Nikki's just shared from a lived experience. So the strategy and design, realizing the outcome, our facilitation, training, engagement architecture, reinforcement, measurement, iteration. This is the summary slide that I know a lot of you love. In terms of covering off what we've talked about. It's not about the event. It's about activating skills, reinforcing behavior, and sustaining momentum, like we've just seen in that example. When it's done together, these stages align the team, they drive engagement, and they deliver measurable business outcomes. And if you think in terms of what the golden thread for Nikki and I are, in no matter what we do, we always start with that as our end in mind for our clients. We don't exist other than to provide measurable business outcomes to our clients in whatever we do. And that is our golden thread. That's what we call our golden thread. Not just when we kick off our sales years through SKOs across our teams, but in terms of why we turn up and why we exist to do what we do and the value we bring to the market every day. And so what I encourage you to do is think in terms of those 5 areas. Make sure you get out well ahead in terms of your planning of your SKO, right? It is critically important that we get the golden thread right, because it doesn't stop at the SKO. It's a continuous learning culture that is one of the best predictors of development success. Make it part of your culture, and your SKOs will improve, among other things that and other initiatives that you deploy. The tactics that work well for SKO engagement and effectiveness are also a good model for how to plan and structure other training and enablement activities. All right, now with that being said, we can of course help you. You can see that we have tremendous volume of experience, skills, expertise. I can see that our VP of Research, the wonderful Mary, is on the call here, making sure I'm sticking to the integrity of the research, bringing that to life, and also translating how we can help support the SKOs of our clients in the future. We have the skills, we have the experience. We'd love to help you. Just reach out and we'll have a conversation. Now, with that being said, Katie, I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to get Nikki. Nikki is here. That's great. We are going to field some questions. So I know that there's a lot. Look at that, Nikki, right on 45 minutes on the dot. Let's go to Q&A.
Yes.
Of course, if you've
So
got
Andy,
questions,
at the
if you want to
beginning,
do that. Yeah.
we have flooded with questions here. And at the
All right.
beginning, you mentioned the ROI of the SKO. How do you measure
Yep.
it? You know, it can be complicated since it has many different things that can impact the results.
Yeah, so I'm going to have a go, and then I'm going to throw it to Nikki because he may have some specific examples. Because I'm going to talk a little bit more headline level because I know that there's people on the call from who have a smaller selling organization, and I've seen some who have very large selling organizations. So I think the context is important. We're going to see some that will do a half day SKO virtually. I know some that will do a single day, and then others of you, like Nikki's example, may be doing up to 4 days, and that's not rare. We've seen particularly a lot of our enterprise clients will take a good week out of their sellers' worlds and bring them into a central location, as many as they can, in order to really have a well-invested, impactful SKO. So I think in terms of ROI, there's immediate measures you can glean, and Nikki's certainly given you some, and I won't spoil his thunder because he'll be able to add to that. But I think the immediate one is confidence. You can do a pre-SKO and you can do a post-SKO seller confidence on a variety of different measures. Now, confidence is something that's instant. It's something that you're going to get an immediate response to. And you will be able to gauge, has the confidence level improved across key areas that we wanted to release, we wanted to launch, we wanted to reinforce, we wanted to educate, develop, and train on at the SKO from before and after. So you can engage before, you can engage after. Seller confidence is going to be an immediate measure that you can talk to. Application plans. Now we use, and we are, I should say, we are beginning to use in the throes of using AI to track application. Now, Nikki's talked about conversation and the data that conversation AI spits out, and the wealth of intel and insights you can glean from that measurement. But we also have AI tools now that we are bringing to market, which anything in written form, anything that is typed, anything that is completed, anything that is able to be submitted, that we can attach a scorecard to, we can measure. So leveraging AI to capture inputs from sellers, be it through conversation or be it through written form or type form, that we want to assess quality of, completion of, assess level of engagement, level of knowledge retention, to give us leading indicators in terms of success of an SKO, can be done leveraging AI and the right partners to be able to craft that immediately. So you're not going to be able to see, SKO suddenly is going to see a spike in seller performance. You want to look for the suite of lead indicators that you can measure pre and post SKO that give you leading indicators to say confidence is up. We've seen application live in SKO session that tells us they understand the messaging, they understand the practical aspects of what we want them to apply, and we can measure those for a variety of ways, particularly with AI. On that, I'm going to pause straight to you, Nikki. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. My only build on that, and it's in many ways it's just defining the right language to talk about this stuff. And I think you spoke about it earlier, Andy, when you said lead and lag. I think what we've been searching for a number of years in this industry is what's in the middle, though. If lead is here and lag is there anything in the middle where on that journey you can develop a bit of confidence that something good is happening? And I think, again, not to be an evangelist for this particular technology, so to speak, but the AI conversational tool is a game changer in that respect, because in a safe, contained environment, you can start to create data that gives you a sense of the through line between education, training, as in development of knowledge, and the learner's ability to express that knowledge in a conversation with the customer, because that's where the rubber hits the road in terms of sales performance. And if we can keep focused on, we need to think of a word, Andy, like whatever the word is between lead and lag, then to speak to your point earlier, it's how you measure that through AI conversation. I think that's it. That's the answer to the future of this.
Yeah, completely agree.
Excellent.
Next one, Katie.
How do we persuade our leaders to invest in tech for AI simulations?
Straight to you, Nikki.
Show them, don't tell them. show them, don't tell them, find a way of putting it in front of them. And because most of your leaders will be smart people, immediately their heads will go to how they can apply it. So show them, don't tell them.
Excellent. And our next one, can you give an example of a quote enable app that was used at Nikki's SKO?
It was ours. So I think the background to that is we are a learning business first and a tech business second. And because of that, we have been developing technology through a learning lens for the best part of 12 years. And what you're looking for there with an enablement app is not something, for want of a better phrase, that's the most visually sexy app in the world. You're looking for something that's really accessible, really functional, and is really clear for attendees at an SKO on what they have to do, why and when, and making sure that the functionality of the app is inherently flexible enough so that the client team can season it and populate it with all the things that they believe is important. So that's our enablement app. That's what we use as a basis, not only for SKOs, but for long tail learning journeys as well.
I just want to build on that. I love that opening line. I think you and I are completely on that one. And that is, I mean, that's what we're talking about with AI and how we should be leveraging AI at SKO is with our sellers, right? Whilst we were talking about the context of selling it into leadership, but in the actual SKO, gone are the days where they tell us, right? If you're talking about measurement, you want to see demonstrated, we are in the day of show us, right? Get them involved, get them showing us, and leveraging AI tech within your SKO to get them showing us and others is a brilliant way of bringing it to life. So just to build on that, but yeah, brilliant. Katie?
Excellent. And how much lead time do we need to integrate AI simulations into our SKOs?
Straight to Nikki.
I will answer this properly and not fudge it because I want to say it depends. But I think depending on how quickly the client team can activate, anything between 3 weeks and 12 weeks. And the reason there's a range is because you might want to develop more than one bot or one persona, because your customers will be facing off to multiple different stakeholders for multiple different reasons. And you want to make your SKO as inclusive as possible and as relevant as possible for as many of your sellers. So the way to do that from an AI conversational tool is to have a persona that reflects the typical client persona they face off against.
Excellent. And what lessons from SKOs would you also apply to the training of salespeople?
Good question. I'll have a first grade that the ones that I've seen worked is you do have a treatment for new sellers. You don't just throw them in the mix and expect them to be the same and understanding and comprehending. So I'd look at, is there an opportunity to level set pre-SKO so that our new sellers have as much as they can to be up to speed so that they can comprehend the messages, they can align with the golden thread, they can pull that through with their limited experience as quickly as we can, and that they can engage in activities with some sort of deeper understanding similar to your tenured sellers. If it's at SKO, obviously what I've seen really powerful is recognizing them up front. Now, I'm not saying get them to stand up or what have you, but in the right cultures, sometimes that's really appropriate is we get them, I've seen them up on stage. The first thing is we want to welcome all the people that have joined us since our last time we were together. And, we've seen interactions where it's a fun way of getting people to introduce themselves and they throw some curveball questions and it humanizes the experience early on, but it makes them feel special. But definitely don't treat new sellers like everyone else. Find a way to make sure that they're level set and that they're recognized and appreciated in terms of the content or the structure or the session dynamic and makeup. In terms of that, and then obviously that we're not assessing them if we're measuring and we're gamifying it, but at the same time we're checking things, making sure that we have a treatment and understanding that there's going to be different types of selling groups in there in terms of experience. So yeah, Nikki, over to you.
It's a really good question. What lessons in SKO would you apply?
That's it.
Yeah, I guess there's something in I guess there's something in this is quite important. Let me think about this, but there's something in an SKO. A lot of very smart people at the most senior levels of an organization spend an awful lot of time making the complex incredibly simple. Like sometimes like organizations that sell very complex solutions to very complex problems, the hardest job that they have on is making that accessible and consumable to their sellers. And at SKO, more than any other event, a lot of smart people they put their minds to that. Can they be master distillers of the complex? And there's a parallel between the effort and investment that goes into that for SKO messaging and how you train new salespeople as well. Like start at the very bottom of what they need to know in terms of the rationale for your organization existing and then build from there. Like make it so crisp and so clear that they could explain it to their 9-year-old kid if they had to.
Simple isn't easy. There's a lot of hard work that goes into making something simple to understand. Remember that it's not about easy. Easy and simple are not the same. But yeah, simplicity in terms of that narrative and making it easy to understand because you've made it simple. Love it. Great point. Katie, 4 minutes left.
Excellent. And our last question. I've noticed
Hey.
that some companies are reducing their investments in their annual sales kickoff events, shifting from full in-person meetings to virtual or hybrid formats. In some cases, they're also splitting the kickoff into shorter events throughout the year. Have you observed the same trend?
I'll close out. Nikki, over to you. The last one.
Great question. We're trying to stay on top of this as much as we can. Mary's research points to there being an SK points to SKOs being even more effective if they're twice a year or more. Completely back that. There's the investment in a monetary capacity, but there's also the investment in time. That is an awful lot of resource coming away from coming out of the market for a week to attend an event. So that's a lot of time you're asking for. There is an appetite to look at, therefore, from our client base. How do you maybe split it up over the course of a year, one a quarter, and how do you use the best of what today's technology has to offer to give virtual attendees a brilliant, not death by PowerPoint, engaging experience versus a passive one? I think that's very much part of the future as well, because the costs are in the millions if you're bringing everybody to a central location each year, and it puts an awful lot of pressure on management teams to therefore run an outstanding one.
I will remind you, if you're designing virtual SKOs, they can be really tricky. Listen to that common theme of engagement, right? We have to engage if we're going to inspire and shift thinking to shift behavior. You are more likely to have people disconnect virtually than you will in face-to-face. And so we do see that those companies that make, and it is a significant investment in face-to-face, it can have a multiplied effect because you can control the engagement, but you also can control the engagement virtually. And it shouldn't matter. You've just got to think about it from a modality standpoint differently. And I'll give you one tip. We're not here to talk specifically about virtual SKOs. And if you want to talk about that, we certainly have the expertise to be able to go deep and understand your needs. But if you're designing a virtual SKO right now and you're like, how do I keep them engaged? Think of the 30+3 rule, right? So for every 3 minutes of content, right, you need to engage at the end of each 3 minutes your participant group virtually for 30 seconds, right? So 3 minutes of content, 30 seconds of engagement. 3 minutes of content, 30, and you need that interwoven, and you need to use your various tools that are available to you virtually to constantly be driving interaction. And then I would be definitely thinking about what Nikki shared in terms of then how do we leverage other technologies infused into the virtual SKO to drive ongoing engagement. That's where you would be definitely looking at challenges, gamification, some sort of technology golden thread that links to your golden thread throughout your SKO. And I love what Nikki said. Don't just look at it as a single event at the beginning of the year, virtual or face-to-face. he's clearly saying that best results are shown by repeating it at various frequencies, as we've talked about earlier in the webinar. So that was another key reinforced point in terms of what Nikki's seeing, what our research is seeing as well. So brilliant. On that note, we are at time. I have seen a couple of you have asked questions separately. A couple of you have already emailed me. I'm available on LinkedIn. Nikki's available on LinkedIn. You've got our contact details for Rain Group. Feel free to reach out. We will answer any questions directly that you have for us, no matter which channel you send it through. I hope you've got tremendous value from this and would, of course, welcome any conversation you'd like to have if we can help. That's it from me. Back to you, Katie, and thank you very much, Nikki. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your insight, Andy and Nikki. That concludes our seminar and Q&A for today. Just a reminder that we have recorded this event and you'll receive an email by the end of this week with links to watch the recording. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.